Hello everyone and welcome back. What a glorious day it is. I'm not sure what that big bright orange thing is in the sky, but it's nice. It's been a while since we've had a morning like this, and it's warm, fairly dry, the ground's drying out a bit and the birds are singing, so couldn't ask for much more really. And I've checked the forecast over the next week, and the lowest temperature that we're going to get down to I think is Thursday evening, about 4 degrees, but that's just for an hour or two, and in the daytime we're 10 and above, and a lot of the evenings are sort of 8-9 degrees as well. So spring is here, I believe, and that means I'm going to plant my early potatoes, and I'm going to do them in pots, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And I'm going to do another experiment this year using different composts and fertilizers and see which yields the most at the end of it. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is get this wood chip emptied out of my potato pots. So I think I'm just going to have to bake a big pile of that round the corner, and when I've done that I shall bring you back and we'll start planting some spuds. So I've got my pots emptied of wood chip. It took a bit longer than I thought it would, and what I'm going to do now is start planting my early potatoes. And these two trays are both Charlotte. This tray I saved from homemade potatoes last year. These are home saved seed, and that tray is some Charlotte that I bought this year. And you can see that the ones I've bought look a lot cleaner than the ones I saved, and that's just because I didn't rub the dirt and stuff off them. And some of them are going a little bit green because they've been in the light, in the cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. As long as they've got chits on them, they'll be fine. So I'm going to do 8 pots of early potatoes as part of the experiment this year, and the first 2 pots are going to be my homemade compost, which is in these pots here. I've sieved it, and I did a similar experiment last year where my homemade compost came top, which I'm pleased about. Obviously it beat the other composts and the other fertilizers, so I'm hoping for the same this year. So what I'm going to do is, in this pot I'm going to put about 4 or 5 inches of compost in the bottom. I'll just pull some of these weeds out first. That is the only problem with homemade compost. Okay, so there we've got, it's up to about this level on the pot. So what I'm going to do is select my potato, and if the potato has got more than 3 chits on it, I'm going to dig out with a screwdriver or a knife or something the extra chits that I don't want. So I will keep the strongest looking chits and dig out any more than 3. And I'm going to plant those chip facing upwards, and I'm going to put 2 potatoes in line with the handles of the pot. I'm just going to press them in a couple of inches in from the side of the pot. And there's another good one. That's got 2 chits on it. And then I'm going to put another 4 inches or so of compost on the top there. And then get another 2 potatoes, that's got 2 chits on it, that one's got 2 chits on it, and this time I'm going to put the potatoes that way, so at 90 degrees to the handles. Just press them in, again a couple of inches in from the side of the pot, and then just fill that pot up. And that's the first pot done. So that's my homemade compost. 4 seed potatoes, Charlotte. Charlotte are a second early, and they're a bit of they're not quite a determinate potato, and they're not quite an indeterminate potato. And what determinate and indeterminate actually means is how the plant grows above ground. So a determinate plant is fixed by form, it's determined, as the name would suggest, and therefore determinate potatoes grow as a kind of a bush, a bit like a bush tomato would grow. It'll get to a certain height, etc. It doesn't really mean anything to do with what happens under the ground. However, it is widely accepted that early potatoes, determinate potatoes, grow on one level under the ground, and that's why we can get away with planting them at 2 different levels in these pots. If these were main crop potatoes, or indeterminate, which means it isn't determined, their size and shape and things, and it will just keep growing. I mean, in fact, potatoes, indeterminate potatoes, can be referred to as vined potatoes because they just keep growing upwards. Some varieties can get 10 foot tall. So if I was planting indeterminate potatoes in here, or main crop, I wouldn't be doing them on 2 layers. It would be 3 seed potatoes near the bottom of the pot, and then I'd fill it up. And the reason for that is I would plant less seed potatoes in the pot because main crop tend to grow bigger potatoes. They grow for much longer as well, and therefore they will use more nutrients out of the soil, out of the compost. So if it's earlies, I'll put 4 in on 2 different levels. If it was main crop, I will put 3 in on one level nearer the bottom, sort of 4 inches up. And your early potatoes are going to take, depending on variety and weather and conditions, are going to take anywhere between 75 to 100 days. So if you're planting them in March, you're going to harvest them around June. Your main crop are going to take 120 days-ish. Some are longer, some are shorter, depends on conditions, etc. So they're in the ground much longer. So that's the first pot done. I'm going to put that over here. I'll do the next pot and I'll bring the camera closer so you can see down into the pot. So the same, about 4 inches of compost in the bottom. I'll get my seed potato, and that's only got one really big chit on it. So this particular seed potato will probably grow bigger potatoes than, say, this one, which is actually growing 3 chits. One there by my thumb, one there, and one there. The more chits you have, the smaller the potatoes. So again, I'm going to plant in line with the handles, a couple of inches in, and then put some more compost in there. That's the second layer of compost. And then get a couple more potatoes. One there and one there. So across 90 degrees to the ones that I've already planted. And then just fill that pot up. So the next 2 pots I'm going to use plain shop bought compost. This is clover, peat based, and I find it really good. And it's exactly the same process, 4 or 5 inches in the bottom, 2 seed potatoes, another 4 or 5 inches, 2 seed potatoes, and then fill the pot. That's it. So now I have noticed a couple of these seed potatoes haven't chitted, and they've been on the side in the shed in the light for a good month, maybe a bit more. And I'm thinking, if they haven't chitted now, then they're probably not going to. So I'm not going to plant any that haven't chitted. That one's starting to. Okay. So that's the first pot of plain shop bought compost. do another pot like that, and I'll bring you back for the next 2 pots, which I'm going to do something a little bit different with. So in the next 2 pots I'm going to use shop bought compost again, exactly the same compost, only this time I'm going to add some fish blood and bone. So I've put my first sort of 4-inch layer of compost in the bottom. I'm going to get a handful of fish blood and bone, sprinkle it in, just give it a little bit of a mix up, and plant 2 of the seed potatoes as I did before. Then I'm going to put another 4 inches of compost. Then another handful of fish blood and bone. Give it a mix in. And then two more seed potatoes. So I've used all my homemade, home saved seeds now. So I'm on the shop bought. And then I'll fill the pot up with compost, add another handful of fish blood and bone, mix that in, and I'll do that for the next pot as well. So we've got 2 of those to compare to the 2 homemade compost and the 2 plain shop bought compost. So I've run out of pots that are the same size. These are actually 40 litre pots, and I need 1 more, and the only one I've got is this one, which has got pink fir apple potatoes in it, stored all through the winter since last sort of August, September time, and we're still eating these. So I'm going to take these out, put them in this tray, and they're going to go up the house, and we'll eat those over the next few days. So, and that's a pink fir apple, fantastic potato. Really enjoy these, and I would highly recommend you growing them as a main crop. It looks like a sweet potato, it isn't, they're not. And like I say, these have just been in the shed in this compost. This is the compost that they some of the earlies grew in last year, and this is how I store potatoes through the winter. But I need the pot. I have got other pots, but I need to make sure they're all the same size pot for the experiment. They can grow a bit like this, a bit sort of knobbly, which makes them difficult to peel. But what we tend to do with those is snap off these knobbles and just give them a scrub and boil them as boiled potatoes, or you can literally just give them a scrub, slice them up into chips. Really nice. Problem is getting them all out. And of course, yeah, I have spent quite a bit of money on compost to grow these potatoes, but this compost will be used at the end of the season to either store the potatoes in, and then the following spring, late winter, it gets put on the beds as a soil conditioner, because I only want to put compost that I've already grown in on the beds. And the reason for that is I know that compost is good. It hasn't got any weed killers or stuff in it, which you can very often have nowadays. and so therefore I will only put compost that I've grown in already in a pot, or my homemade compost on the beds. Because if I put some compost from a shop in a pot and the plants die, I know that compost's no good, and I can then get rid of it. And that's exactly what I'm going to go do with this compost in a minute, is put it on one of the beds. Probably where I'm going to sow some leeks, plant some leeks out actually. I think that's the more. So that is the last of last year's potato harvest. We've eaten everything else. I knew it was too good to be true. Raining. Well, we'll give it a few minutes, see what happens. So in these last two pots, I'm going to do exactly the same planting method, but I'm going to mix in some 6 times, which I've never used before, and apparently it's 6 times better than farmyard manure. And, well, not better, it covers the area 6 times better. So that was £15, I think, as opposed to £15 a bag for a mixed farmyard manure. So I'm going to give that a go, and I'm going to mix it into the pots exactly the same as I did with the fish blood and bone. So I've put about 4 inches in these 2 pots here. I'm going to mix some of that in. That smells good. So I'm going to put a handful at that level. Give it a mix in. Same in this pot. And then again, in line with the handles, and then another handful. And then the last 2 Charlotte. Top those off. There we go. So I just need to put some labels on these now so I know what's what, and then we're going to start another experiment, but with the Lady Crystal. So we've got shop bought compost with 6 times fertilizer, shop bought compost with no feed, shop bought with fish blood and bone, and homemade compost with no feed. So 2 pots of each. Okay, for this last part of the video I'm going to have to film from inside the shed because of the weather. I don't want to put my camera out in this rain. So I'm going to use 3 pots, not 4, because I've only got 3 of a similar size. I'm going to do homemade compost. We're going to do 6 times, and we're going to do specific potato feed. And last year when I did the experiment, the potato feed came a very close second to my homemade compost. So let's get them planted exactly the same as before. So no more than 3 chits from my new potatoes, facing upwards. And then this is the homemade compost. And then 2 more. Okay. So this has got about 4 chits. So I'm just going to go and get something quickly out the shed, and I'll show you how I dig them out. So the closest thing to hand was my chainsaw spanner, and most of the chits are on this end of the potato, so I'm going to dig out this one on the bottom, and it's literally a case of remove the chit. If I just rub it off, there's a chance it could try and grow again. So same with that one. Then we'll do the 6 times, same as before. This rain's getting quite heavy now. Then we want more compost. And some more 6 times. And 2 more potatoes. So this one's got lots of chits as well. So we've got 5 on that one. So I'm going to take that one out and that one out. There's another one there. It's got 6. There we go. And that one. It's actually got 7 chits on that potato. So I've left 3. So in this pot I'm going to put the potato feed. This is a Vitax organic potato and vegetable feed. Used it last year, very good. So put about a handful in there. Mix that in. 2 potatoes. If you get one with a big split in it like that, don't worry about it. As long as it's chitting. I've took the chits out of this one already. And the compost. Some more potato feed. And the potatoes. So take that one out. Take that one out. And that one. And then the compost. And potato feed. Okay, so I'll do some labels for these. I have got 5 potatoes left, but I think what I'll do is I'll just do another pot of shop bought with potato feed, but it'll just be a different size pot, so that pot won't be included in the experiment. So we've got 2 experiments going now. We've got homemade compost. These are all Charlotte, so homemade compost compared with plain shop bought, compared with plain shop bought with fish blood and bone, compared with plain shop bought and 6 times. And then we've got Lady Crystal homemade compost, shop bought compost with 6 times, shop bought compost with potato feed. Should be some interesting results come June, end of June. Right, I'm going to come in the shed now with you guys. It's wet out here. So one last little job that I want to do is just lay out the pink fir apple that I saved from seed last year. And because they're just not chitting at all in this bag, and that's absolutely fine, but I can, because of the time of year, I can take them out of the bag now and lay them out in the light, cool and light, and get them chitting. And they've just been in this paper bag all winter, so I'm just going to stand them up in these little holes and just see what happens, see if they start to chip. And we'll go from there. These won't get planted for another 2-3 weeks yet, and these are King Edward that have been chitting already for about a month. So they're the main crop potatoes I'll be growing this year, and they'll be going in, like I say, in a few weeks, and hopefully we'll get some nice pink fir apple again this year. And I'll put those 5 Lady Crystal in another pot somewhere, or 2 pots when it stops raining, so probably around July time. Okay guys, that's it for another video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this sort of content, then please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. And yeah, there's always videos like this coming out, me messing around in the mud, planting stuff, trying to grow things, etc. So hopefully I'll see you soon. Cheers.